Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, set to join us. Connor, how we doing, sir? How you living?
I'm living well. I didn't realize it was R&B
It
Thursday.
is.
I would have come more prepared with boys to men takes.
Yep.
Somehow still underrated, even though that era missed me a little bit. But I like R&B Thursday. I feel like that's a genre that I think we need to get back to a little bit more, if I'm
Thank
being
you.
honest.
Yeah, that's why I do it. It's for the people. Boys to Men certainly is on the playlist here. We'll play certainly some Usher, some Genuine, some Jagged Edge, some Jodeci. Like all that will be played here today. Just so you know.
That's good to know.
Yep.
Late '90s Usher too, not like, hey, I've made it big and I'm putting out
That's right.
like into the aughts. I like real late
Yeah.
'90s Usher.
Yeah.
It hits home in a different way.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you right now. It's a great take. I typically do like your takes, and so I'm not surprised by it. One of the things I want to get your take on immediately right here because I need to know this information. What time slot should a marquee football game be played?
It's a good question. I think context is key because Lord knows Ohio State fans are just incensed that Big Noon Kickoff exists and they want to have every single Ohio State game starting at noon.
Yep.
And fans are like, what the heck? Like, this is just ridiculous, even
Yep.
though it's lining their pockets with cash as we speak. But I think an ideal college football game is played at night.
Yep.
I think it's played at night. I think it's played
Correct
at
answer.
7 p.m. I think that there are certain justifications for 3:30. Obviously, 3:30 on CBS, 2:30 in your central time
Yep.
zone was a staple for 2+ decades that we obviously hold very near and dear in college football.
Yep.
Is it still that way anymore? I don't think it is.
No.
I really don't. I do think that if you're talking about a premier college football game and what is most important, what is the thing that you turn on TV and feel like it is biggest? It is Chris Fowler, it's Kirk Herbstreit, it's Holly Rowe, it's this big time type atmosphere where it feels like anything can happen. That's at night. That's
Yep.
at night for me.
That's the correct answer. Well done, sir. And look, I do a radio with a lot of former Big Ten athletes, and they push the noon kickoff. I'm like, look, no big game should be at breakfast time. Like, I need that game to marinate on campus like all day long. Like, I need that build up to just continue to build. And look, the tailgates are still there at that time. Hell, the tailgates for like a big time SEC game are there on Thursday night. Right. And so, like, you wake up early, you tailgate, and you walk around campus. And Connor, it's like you can feel the electricity of the game. And by like the hour, it just intensifies and just continues to build. And then you get to kickoff. And if you've handled yourself right, if you've hydrated properly, you're going to enjoy a nice 3.5, 4 hour game that you've been waiting for all day long.
I'm a Big Ten grad, so I can say this. It's 100% true. And look, I remember games at Indiana wherein Indiana would play, gosh, who was it? Oh, it was Ball State. They had Ball State on like a Thursday or a Friday night or something like that. And that game, by the time you got to kickoff at 7:30, because Indiana never had night games
Yeah.
ever. It's just not something you do. And in Big Ten country, later in the season, the weather, the way that it changes, you need to be able to have those daytime games so that fans aren't miserable watching teams that aren't going to be playing for national championship. And so at Indiana, that game over the course of the day, you're right, it progressed, and it created one of the wildest tailgates I've ever been to. You could probably find it in deep dark corners of the internet that I don't care to go to anymore.
Yeah.
But there is just something to be said for that, as opposed to, look, I went to tons of Indiana games where they were starting at noon. And one of the biggest games I went to was against a Michigan Denard Robinson team.
Yeah.
And that buildup was just not quite there. And it was gray. Everything felt slower. And it just didn't quite have the same sort of gravitas that a 7:30 game did. And that's a weird thing to say. For whatever reason, though, our eyes are just trained to process it that way. There's a reason why when we watch the NFL, it just feels like such a better product when these games are being played at night. And I think that's something that the SEC has always done so much better than any other conference, is having these games at night and really saying, like, do we want to have this game at 11 local time or noon? Because I just think there's something about it that looks better to the viewer when it's being played in, under the lights.
Yep, I agree. Well said there. And we looked at LSU's schedule a little bit earlier and kind of went down. Only going to be one like truly early noon type kickoff, and that's going to be Arkansas at home. So LSU's schedule looks like LSU fans would want it to look like. Connor, there was a question going, around the internet, and I had a couple of different people reach out to me, and they asked for my answer. And then, of course, I made some fans mad because, well, that's just what happens in the SEC when you disagree with somebody. It was start, bench, or cut Nussmeier, Lagway, and Arch. All right, so tough, right? So Nuss, Lagway, and Arch, start, bench, and cut. And I guess it started with our guys CD and Roman. They were doing the SEC network, and they both went start Lagway, bench Nuss, cut Arch Manning. I would just flip Lagway and Nuss and then roll with the rest.
I'm not pandering when I say this, because I mean, look, I'm already on record saying I think Nuss is the best returning quarterback in the SEC. I have LSU winning a national championship, so I'm not gonna bench Nuss. Obviously, I have to start Nuss in this situation. So I would start Nuss. I would bench Arch so that he can watch, get reps, figure some things out.
Yeah.
And I would only cut Lagway, who, by the way, I still have Lagway as my number 3 quarterback in the SEC. He's one of the players I'm most excited to watch in all of college football. I'm fully in on DJ Lagway.
Yeah, me too.
The only thing is he spent an entire offseason going into this first full pivotal season as a starter, not throwing the football.
Yeah.
And there are still people wondering, is that shoulder right?
Yeah.
Is he going to be okay? And is he going to be in a spot where he just doesn't have it necessarily from the jump, and Florida is left scrambling? That would scare me. Obviously, there's always injury risk with all of these guys, but knowing that that's kind of baked in there, I would probably have to bench someone like Lagway, and I would take more of a chance on Arch. But I mean, Lagway's the more proven player. If he's healthy, who's going to be the better player day one? I'll take DJ Lagway. I'll take Garrett Nussmeier over Arch, obviously. But it's a great question. And Lenore Sellers, you could absolutely throw in there. But then, you get into the stuff with him about, hey, is Mike Shula going to be the guy that's going to kind of maximize his abilities? You just kind of don't really know. Yep. But it is a really, really interesting question that surely just upsets a lot of people.
I mean, this is really the year of the quarterback in the SEC for me. I mean, the 3 guys that we just mentioned, you mentioned Lenore Sellers there. You can go John Mateer at Oklahoma. I know you're not quite as high on him as maybe some others, but still, a really good quarterback at Washington State. We'll see what he can do at Oklahoma. You got Diego Pavia, and sure, it's not NFL polished quarterback play, but I'll be damned if I went into battle if I didn't call that guy first. Like, I don't know where you fit in, but I'm calling Diego to be in there with me. And so, like, there is some highly intriguing quarterbacks. And what is wild is, like, so we're talking all these quarterbacks, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, like some of the heavy hitters have quarterback questions. Now, we think that those guys are going to play well. Like, we think that, Ole Miss, it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is because Lane Kiffin's coaching them. But, like, some of the teams that have had the most success are the ones that had the quarterback questions in the SEC, and the ones that are trying to punch up feel like they have quarterback figured out.
Yeah, it's extremely rare. I mean, South Carolina has famously never had an all-SEC quarterback at season's end. And you could argue Lenore Sellers is one of the 5 best quarterbacks in all of college football returning. I mean, for ever, LSU during the 2010s, it was, where are they going to find a quarterback? And now, seemingly on a yearly basis, they have their guy. Florida, for the longest time, with different iterations, obviously they felt comfortable with Kyle Trask returning or something like that. But to have a guy like Lagway, yeah, it is different. For Texas to have all the guys that they missed out on in their state in the 2010s, and then to now be in this position where finally the Arch Manning era has arrived.
Yeah.
You're right. It does feel like a bit of a change in the guard. I'll be interested if it's a change in the guard at Ole Miss. Austin Simmons is really interesting. He's 19 years old and he's graduated college, which is the new Ryan Williams' 17 stat of 2025.
No, right?
It's crazy to think about
crazy.
that guy.
Hey, the day I graduated high school, so the very day I graduated, on May the 8th of 2004, I turned 19. High school, like the day I graduated high school, I turned 19. And this guy, I mean, so it is pretty impressive.
He's going to be one of those guys that we're going to be talking about so much. And I'm already talking about him a lot because of some of those factors. LSU fans remember Walker Howard really well. And for people that covered Ole Miss last year, when Austin Simmons earned the backup job and moved ahead of Walker Howard, it was kind of like this, wait a minute, what? How is that happening already when Walker Howard came in as this really decorated transfer? The thinking was he was going to redshirt, essentially have a redshirt type season. I realized he'd already redshirted, but behind Spencer Sanders and behind Jackson Dart. Yeah. And then Austin Simmons is just a better player. Yeah. And it was pretty undeniable. And that's obviously why Walker Howard hit the portal at season's end last year. And Austin Simmons did what he did most notably against Georgia when he delivered Ole Miss's biggest drive of the season. But the floor for Ole Miss quarterbacks has been at least, 2022 Jackson Dart and 2020 Matt Corral were at least middle of the pack quarterbacks in the SEC. So there's so much potential with Austin Simmons. And I think he's someone that people are really, really excited to see in Oxford.
What about the weapons there for Ole Miss? Because I was talking about them, and the defense is not going to be the same. Like, I don't care who you brought in. I covered the draft in Green Bay, and I swear we were saying defender, Ole Miss, defender, Ole Miss. Like when we were breaking down, somebody was getting drafted from there. So the defense isn't going to look the same. Offensively, you're right. I mean, it's Lane Kiffin with a quarterback. Is it going to be on the same level of Jackson Dart last year? Not out of the gates, but maybe it can get there. But Logan Diggs at running back, like obviously we've seen him here at LSU. Like he's a good, solid running back, not really a game changer. And then at receiver, man, you know how big of a fan I am of Trey Harris. And when he was there last year, they were different. When he went down with injury, like that was a massive, massive hit for them. So what about the weapon Simmons is going to be throwing to?
Caden Lee's a stud. He's somebody that needs to be talked about more in the SEC. He's one of the best returning receivers in the SEC. I think he's right in that same exact tier that Aaron Anderson is in coming back this year, maybe right behind where Ryan Williams, and I'm very bullish on Cam Coleman at Auburn, especially the way that he finished last season, the former 5-star recruit who will be entering year 2. That those guys are my 4 best receivers in the SEC. So Ole Miss still, even after losing Trey Harris, even after losing Juice Wells, who didn't end up being the player that they hoped he was going to be, still is one of the best 4 receivers in the SEC. And then they were active in the portal. They get a receiver from the second option in Penn State's passing room behind Tyler Warren. They get Stribling from Oklahoma State, who put up big numbers this past year with Bowman, who is Alan Bowman, who was in like year 12 at Oklahoma State. And they have a really nice receiver room. The question for Ole Miss, though, is oddly the ground game. They never figured it out last year. They never did. They lose Quinshon Judkins to Ohio State, and thinking as well, Ole Miss doesn't have to overpay for a running back because this is Lane Kiffin. They're just plug and chug. They'll bring Henry Parrish back. That guy was here like 3 years ago. Get him from Miami. Let's see. It'll work out just fine. They never figured it out. And so I don't know that they're going to figure it out this year. Diggs hasn't been able to stay healthy. You guys know that very well. And this is a team that has a lot of questions on the offensive side of the ball. They're not in the top 100 in Bill Connolly's percentage of returning offensive production. And I think it's going to be very much feeling like a gap year for Ole Miss. But the schedule sets up well. Once again, the schedule sets up really, really well, and it could be a dark horse.
It does, man. The schedule for another year. It's like, I don't know who owed y'all a favor, but y'all cashed it in, and we'll see if it can pay off for Ole Miss. Connor, you're the man. We appreciate your time. As always, you can go catch Connor's work Saturday down south at CJ Oger is the handle on social media there. I'm sure I'll catch up again with you very soon, sir.
Yeah, we're going to be talking literally later today.
I figured. Very soon. Yeah, that's what, I was like, as soon as I was like, oh yeah, let's get Connor on the morning show, talk a little quarterbacks. And I was like, Oh, yeah, it's Thursday. I'm going to talk to Connor twice. But you know what? I still did it because I enjoy our conversation, sir.
Hey, can't get enough. We'll always talk ball twice in the same day with you, man.
That's right. All right. See you later. Literally.
Thanks, man.